that this plan is based essentially on future economic relationships and a softening of that stance between the United States and Russia, really, rather than having Ukraine's best interests and Europe's best interests at heart. That is why Ukraine and Europe has been blindsided by this plan.
Donald Trump has been posting on his Truth Social platform, accusing Ukrainian leaders of having zero gratitude over US efforts to end the war. Well, let's get the very latest with Nina Dos Santos, a former Europe editor at CNN. Nina, good afternoon.
Hi there, Alexis. Good to be with you.
What is the latest that's coming out of Geneva, Nina?
Well, it seems as though the position of these EU representatives, including Jonathan Powell, who is the UK's national security advisor, who's present there, is that they're desperate to impress upon the US side that they thank them very much for making the first step forward in trying to put pen to paper, but this 28-point plan needs an awful lot more work, not just to make sure that Ukraine is secure and that this is a lasting and just peace for Ukraine, but also to defend Europe as well, because there's real fear that hidden among the weeds of this very long and complicated plan are some rushed statements that could hobble Ukraine for the future and allow it to become a launching pad if Vladimir Putin were to grab off further chunks of Western Ukraine and then head into NATO territory. So really what this initiative this Sunday is all about is to try and soften the stance of this plan. Remember, when it was originally unveiled just a few days ago, it was supposed to be a take it or leave it moment. It seems as though the US president might be softening his stance on that now.
Nina, what has the president been saying on his Truth Social post? Half of it's in capitals, so he's quite worked up.
Yeah, forgive me if I can't remember the exact verbatim because it was so long. And as you said, he comes in and out of capital letters. At parts, it seemed to be quite angry, essentially accusing the Ukrainian leadership of being ungrateful for just taking more from the United States at a time when under Joe Biden's administration previously in the White House, they didn't have to pay for it. But Donald Trump is now saying, I'm getting your bang for your buck, US citizens. And he also appears to be taking aim, even if it's not explicitly mentioned inside this rather large and lengthy Truth Social post he's put out today, at President Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. Now, there's a lot of people who are concerned that this 28-point plan that's been hashed out in secret at Mar-a-Lago between Steve Witkoff, who is the president's envoy over in the United States, and Kirill Dmitriev, who is formerly of the head of the Russian Sovereign Wealth Fund, who is a Kremlin long-standing Kremlin advisor of Vladimir Putin, that this plan is based essentially on future economic relationships and a softening of that stance between the United States and Russia, really, rather than having Ukraine's best interests and Europe's best interests at heart. That is why Ukraine and Europe has been blindsided by this plan. But if Zelensky does accept it and the national tide inside his country goes against him, that could prove to be fatal for him. There could also be more question marks about whether he's doing enough to stamp out corruption inside Ukraine. So you can already see the narrative being laid in this Truth Social post by Donald Trump, yet again, that Zelensky is the impediment to peace.
Yeah. Nina, thank you. Always good to speak. Nina Dos Santos, the former Europe editor at CNN. Now, as we're just talking about with Nina, Donald Trump has accused Ukrainian leaders of having zero gratitude over US efforts to end the war. It comes as an American, European, Ukrainian delegations all are meeting in Switzerland and Geneva over that 28-point peace plan to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. So let's get a view from the US now with Lara Spirit, Times Washington correspondent. Lara, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, good afternoon.
He's been at his Truth Social, Lara, and a lot of it is in capitals, which is never a good sign.
No, exactly. I think that's probably a good instinct of yours. He's definitely wading into this. I think given that, many of his colleagues, Steve Witkoff notably, and Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, are in Geneva for key talks on this peace deal. The fact that President Trump is wading in is in one sense not surprising, but in another does suggest that it is front of his mind. And analysts have watched many times over recent months to see just how interested President Trump is in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, just how much energy he is willing to pour into the possibility of ending it. And clearly at this point, he is demonstrating some level of frustration with the Ukrainians in this post as they continue to raise some concerns about the shape of this peace deal. So, Trump saying in here, blaming Joe Biden, former President Biden, for the beginning of the conflict, as he has done a number of times before, but also saying that, the Ukrainian leadership has expressed zero gratitude for our efforts and Europe continues to buy oil from Russia. That is a long-running complaint from some, particularly inside the administration and in wider MAGA circles here. And obviously it echoes what we saw from President Trump in an earlier meeting with President Zelensky in the Oval Office, since superseded, we should say, by warmer encounters between the pair, but nonetheless a very obvious and humiliating dressing down for Zelensky in that memorable meeting between the two of them. So this is not a universally harmonious relationship in many ways, but it had definitely been on a stronger footing in recent months, which is one of the things that will make this statement from Trump the more remarkable.
Laura, how much is this playing out in the American public? I mean, is the conflict between Ukraine and Russia something that people talk about? How much pressure is the president under to sort this out?
Well, I think that usually when you see public pressure placed on the Trump administration around questions of Ukraine, it will be in a broader stroke conversation about foreign wars and the extent to which President Trump is focusing on foreign questions at perhaps the expense of, some of his critics would allege, other pressing domestic issues. And the most notable advocate of that criticism in recent weeks has been Marjorie Taylor Greene, once a loyal foot soldier for President Trump, now, of course, announcing her resignation from Congress in January after a very public and, it seems, permanent rupture with the president over a number of questions, chief among them, of course, Jeffrey Epstein and the Epstein files, which Marjorie Taylor Greene had been pushing for a long time to release. But it was also a criticism from Taylor Greene about the fact that after those difficult down-ballot elections that we saw in Virginia and New Jersey, where the Republicans, some would say, underperformed, you had some, including Taylor Greene, saying, actually, look, I don't want President Trump to be focusing on striking deals with foreign leaders. I want him to be focusing on domestic issues. And that criticism from Taylor Greene was put to Trump, and he said that Marjorie Taylor Greene had lost her way. And that was, I think, one of the contributing factors, albeit just one of a number, that led to their disintegrating relationship. So that question of kind of foreign, focusing on questions of foreign deals and ending conflicts is definitely something that is not 100% harmonious in the MAGA base.
They've had a spectacular fallout. Just very briefly, Lara, and it seems more of on a trivial note, but a separate note, the love life of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., RFK Jr., has been captivating everyone in the US. What's going on?
Yes, so this is I would say this is an issue that has many people in Washington or the wider Beltway glued to their phones at the moment, and it regards a alleged textual affair, i.e. via text, between RFK Jr., the health secretary, and the journalist Olivia Nuzzi, who is soon to publish a memoir in which she talks about her kind of strong feelings and affection for somebody that she calls the politician, that bears a very striking resemblance to RFK Jr. There is mention of the worm in his brain, for example. And it is something that would have been, I think, pretty controversial anyway, this memoir, given not only that Cheryl Hines, the wife of Kennedy, has also published a memoir in a similar space of time, but also because the ex-fiancé of Nuzzi, another formerly extremely high-profile journalist in Washington, Ryan Lizzer, has started to write blogs about Nuzzi and is making a number of fresh allegations about her as well. So this has become, as you say, an extremely captivating for a number of people episode in American politics, or at least adjacent to American politics, and people very much glued to their phones to see what Lizzer is going to talk about next.
Right, the RFK Jr. love triangle. Lara Spirit, as ever, thanks for your time. Good to speak to you. Lara Spirit there, Times Washington correspondent.